Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to Central News for Friday the 31st of January. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Hamilton City Council is cutting through the red tape to speed up the process of setting a psychoactive substances policy. This is due to confirmed information from the Minister's office the Council received late last week, and following the increasing negative effects the Hamilton East community and the CBD are facing. Even though the Council has brought forward the hearing and deliberation dates, public feedback on the draft policy remains the same and submissions close on Monday the 17th of February. With the condensed hearings timeframe, the community is encouraged to have their say early and not wait until the closing date to provide feedback. Federated Farmers is concerned that the Auckland Water Care firm's application to take water from the Waikato will see lost opportunities for economic growth in the Waikato. Federated Farmers Provincial President for Waikato, James Houghton, says part of the Waikato River is already nearly full, allocated with water takes at 10% of its 1 in 5 year low flow. So if this application is approved, Waikato ratepayers lose out. He says Watercare are asking for a further 200,000 cubic metres a day on top of the 150,000 they already take to supply a city that doesn't pay rates in the Waikato. The council needs to be thinking about what benefits there are in giving away Waikato's resources, which are needed to maintain and build Waikato's economy. If you're out in a boat over the next few days, remember there is a temporary moving exclusion zone around the barge transporting sections of the dismantled Rena accommodation block to the Port of Tauranga. Bay of Plenty Regional Council's Harbour Master, Jennifer Roberts, says Resolve Fire and Salvage is working on removing large pieces of wreck from Astrolabe Reef and transferring them from the crane barge RMG 500 onto a deck barge, the RMG 1000, which will be anchored near Motiti Island. Ms Roberts says anyone breaching the direction is liable to a fine or prosecution. The direction applies to all vessels except those authorised by the Harbour Master or the Duty Salvage Master. Now for our region's weather for the weekend, Hamilton, your Saturday will be mainly fine with a southeasterly and your expected high is 26 and an overnight low of 11. Saturday for you, Tauranga, is another good washing day. The gusty southeasterly sticks around with a mostly fine sky. Your expected high is 24 and an overnight low of 15. Your Sunday is very similar to your Saturday, Hamilton. Fine, but the southeasterly breeze eases. Your expected high is 26 and an overnight low of 10. Sunday, the southeasterly breeze eases for you, Tauranga, and it will be fine. Your expected high is 24 and an overnight low of 14. Just ahead, what is causing the gap between income and house prices in Tauranga? Welcome to Central News on TV Central. We came second in the Bay of Plenty, but this isn't a race you want to win. A recent Demographia report on the affordability of housing shows that Tauranga and the Western Bay of Plenty are the second worst off in the country. And many have blamed our city planners and councils for the gap between our median income and the average house price. The average house price in 2006 was $331,500. I spoke with Bill Waisley of Smart Growth to see if that has changed in the last 8 years.
Yes, in 2012 it was around 345,000, so there was a small change. And what was interesting though, nationally, there was significant change, so the average house price nationally went up to 395,000. So there was more significant at a national level than there was in the Western Bay of Plenty area.
What has happened with the average wage in the last 8 years in the Western Bay of Plenty?
There's been a small increase. Overall, our average wage is still on a weekly basis about $150 less than New Zealand average, and the overall household income on an annual basis is probably around 73,000 compared to 80,000 nationally.
That's quite shocking. Does that mean that we're still $10 tauranga?
Yes, there's still that, and one of the challenges we have is the low skill, low wage economy. That's slowly changing, but that takes time. And I think a range of economic development initiatives and that type of thing all assist to actually change that in the medium to longer term.
At the beginning of 2012, there was a draft report about the affordability of housing in Tauranga in the Western Bay. Was this when the issue was first identified?
No, whilst the term affordable housing's relatively new, issues related to it had been identified way back to when smart growth was first adopted in 2004, and certainly in a review undertaken in 2007. And really one of the key aspects of smart growth has been providing that certainty around land availability, location and infrastructure provision. So it's been around for a while. It's really gained momentum, and in the last 2 or 3 years, particularly with the central government initiatives and pronouncements on affordable housing.
We will bring you more on this issue next week. Well, maybe if you can afford a house with a backyard, you might want to raise monarch butterflies as a fantastic nature lesson for children and adults alike. Anne-Marie spoke with Lynn Pickering from Palmer's Garden Centre in Hamilton to find out how we can have a plethora of monarch butterflies in our gardens.
Lynn Pickering from Palmer's Garden Centre, welcome to Central News. We're talking monarch butterflies. 'Tis the season. How easy is it to raise them?
It's really easy. All you need is a couple of swan plants, nice warm sheltered spot to put them in, sit back and enjoy.
Now, what if we have lots of very hungry caterpillars and our swan plants get stripped? Can we feed them other food, just like in the book?
It's not easy to get them to develop into the butterfly if you feed them other food. The cycle for them is about 10 to 14 days for each stage. So from the egg to the caterpillar is about 10 days. For the caterpillar it's about the same, about 14 days, and then it's about the same for the chrysalis stage before it hatches into the butterfly. If the caterpillars are at least 10 days old, you can try transferring them to pumpkin or cucumber. So that old story does actually work. But they have to be a certain stage. If they're any younger than that, they won't develop into the chrysalis. So it's ideal that they're at least 10 days old before you transfer them to that. So you need enough swan plant to get them to that stage.
How many caterpillars per swan plant, roughly?
2 to 3 maximum.
Is that all?
It is. They're very voracious. They eat a lot in one day. They can demolish a plant in no time at all. So you need to have enough swan plants, or you need to be ruthless in stripping the eggs from the leaves so you don't have too many caterpillars at once.
No.
Way easier to squish the eggs than it is to squish the baby caterpillars.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. Can we not just buy a few more swan plants?
Yes, of course. We'd love to sell you more swan plants. The other trick is to plant them earlier in the season and to have a couple. Cover one with a net so that the butterflies can't lay their eggs on it, so that it stops it being stripped too soon. Then your plant's going to be a lot bigger and is going to sustain a lot more caterpillars than a little plant that's only got a few leaves on it.
So that's going to become the actual food source?
Yes, it is.
Now, once the caterpillars have become pupae, what should we be doing?
You can take a branch from a plant if you've got it planted in your garden. If you've got it in a pot, just move the pot to a nice sheltered spot. You can move it indoors to watch that chrysalis develop. When you see it change colour and become transparent, that's when the butterfly is going to hatch. And it can happen quite quickly then. So you could turn your back and go away for an hour and come back and hello, you've got a butterfly. The butterfly needs to be then taken out into the fresh air and just allow the sun to strengthen its wings before it takes flight. So don't try and keep your butterfly indoors and try not to handle them, because if you bruise them, obviously they're very fragile and you're only going to damage them.
Lynn Pickering, thank you so much. We can't wait to have a plethora of butterflies in the garden.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, as up next we find out who's coming to the Jazz Festival. Welcome back. Tonight is the launch of the Tauranga Jazz Festival promotions, where we can find out the lineup. But don't get too excited just yet. There is still a lot to happen until the Easter Festival.
Now Christmas is over, the Jazz Fest team, they've kind of wrapped up the brochure, so that's just coming to us from the printers as we speak, so that's really exciting. We've booked all the concert bands and we're moving on to like the Downtown Carnival and the Jazz Village bands and booking all of that, and we start our promotion next week.
Can you let us know some of the international acts that are coming?
Sure. Well, this year we're kind of celebrating the best of New Zealand jazz. So we just have a few names from overseas. We have Jackie Ryan, who is from America, and we have George Washing Machine from Australia, and we also have a really amazing organist, Scott Harrison, who's also from Australia. So yeah, just a few awesome ones there.
What about national acts?
National acts, we've got all sorts of national acts. We've got like more or less everybody who loves jazz music and is amazing at jazz music is coming to the festival. But to name a few, we've got the Auckland Jazz Orchestra. We've got an amazing chick called Liz Kirkman. She's doing a tribute show to Anita O'Day, and it's a jazz show, but it's more like a concert and a theatre piece. So that's really exciting. I'm very excited about that. And we also have Miho Wada, who's Auckland based, and she's they call her like a ninja funk dude. And she has a little orchestra and they play jazz, and it's really like off the record different. Like it's really cool. So there's heaps of different people.
What are some of the local acts that are coming?
Local acts, well, we're kind of spoilt for choice, really. It's a really hard decision. That this year, our big band night on the Friday, Easter Friday, features the Tauranga Big Band. So that's very exciting. And then also later on in the evening, we've got the Hurricane Party, which is over at the Mauao Performing Arts Centre. And we've got locals, they're called Spank the Funky, and it's Joel Shadbolt and Aaron Saxon. And they've just formed this trio, which is really funky and cool, and that's going to be an awesome party that starts at 9 p.m. and goes through till the early hours of the morning. And then at the Jazz Village and the Downtown Carnival, we literally have hundreds of local musicians that will take the stages, so it's very exciting.
You can find out more about who's coming to the Jazz Festival by visiting their website, jazz.org.nz. Fresh from winning the HRV 2020 series, the Sky City Northern Knights got straight back into first-class cricket, vying for the Plunket Shield. Northern District CEO Peter Roach spoke with Anne-Marie earlier in the week.
Peter Roach, CEO of the Northern Districts Cricket Association, thank you for joining me. Fresh off a win from the HRV 2020 Cup and straight back into first-class mode with the Plunket Shield. How are the boys going?
Yeah, well, we did win the 2020, which was fantastic. Where the Plunket Shield's been a bit more of a challenge. We have some significant issues with players in and out, and that does affect our 4-day team. At the moment, it's a very congested 2nd to 6th on the Plunket Shield ladder. We're at the bottom end of that congestion, but we're 1 win off second. So we hope with 4 games to go, we can challenge that top order.
It's been a fantastic month of cricket for both the Northern Knights and also the Black Caps. What's been your standout highlight so far?
Well, I just think the engagement in cricket has gone through the roof. It lives and dies by the performance of the Black Caps, and they've been sensational in the last month. They have beat a really high quality team in India. And added for our region, we've had 2 fantastic games against India, a good test match, a good West Indian one-dayer, and on top of that, we've won the HRV 2020 in Hamilton. So for cricket in the Waikato and Hamilton, it's been spectacular.
Now, looking ahead, the World Cup games come to New Zealand and Australia February, March next year. Seddon Park gets 3 of those games. How does Seddon Park stand up on a world stage as a facility?
Yeah, well, it's a different cricket ground. It's not the concrete jungles you get in Melbourne and India and certain parts of South Africa. It's a legitimate cricket ground with great grassy banks. It looks full with 8,000 to 10,000 people, which is fantastic for the crowd, fantastic for television. And it's a really good cricket setting. The players love going there, the broadcasters love going there, and I think we should be very proud of what we've got.
Do you think more improvements need to be done on what's already there?
Yeah, there needs to be. You need to keep up. And the bar's being raised around the world. It's being raised in New Zealand in some areas. So Seddon Park and the council acknowledges need to put a bit of work into the wicket, the outfield, the off-field players area, the priorities, and they're looking at that at the moment.
There are 3 games for the World Cup at Seddon Park: South Africa, Zimbabwe, India, Ireland, and New Zealand versus Bangladesh. When do tickets go on sale?
They go on sale a year out, and we're really excited by the quality of games we've got there. We've got 2 of the best teams, 1 and 2 on the 2 of the top 3 now of the ODI teams in India and South Africa, and we've got a really important New Zealand game at the back end of the tournament, which we assume will be jostling for a place, in those quarterfinals. So we're really excited, and you can register for tickets on the Cricket World Cup website, and they go on sale mid-February.
Fantastic. Peter Roach, thanks so much for joining me.
No problem.
Coming up next, a new program to help children. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. Last year, the Owen Glen inquiry into child abuse pushed for laws to be changed and to recognise that when a child witnesses domestic violence, this is in fact a form of child abuse. The Tauranga Women's Refuge has launched a new children's program. I spoke with a facilitator to find out what research has shown about children who have witnessed domestic violence.
Well, there has been quite a lot of research that's been done around the cognitive, behavioural and emotional effects of children that have witnessed domestic violence. What the research shows is that children that are witnesses to the violence are affected just as badly as children that are abused themselves. The Brainwave Trust in New Zealand has actually done some research that shows babies' brain development, and babies that are in violent situations, their brains just don't develop the way that normal children do, and in the end their brains are actually smaller than other children because of the abuse that they've been around, so that's actually can be really difficult for our mums to hear, and a lot of the time they're like, but he's such a good dad, and it's like actually he is damaging your child. Regardless of whether you can see that effect straight away. But obviously leads to a whole rash of problems from, higher risk of depression and anxiety to behavioural issues, disobedience, fighting and aggression, poor performance in school. It's certainly not good for children to be in violent homes.
And with that aggressive and violent behaviour, is that more common in boys than girls?
Oh, definitely. More so in boys because they see their dad being aggressive, and so they think that that's the way that boys are supposed to behave. All behaviour is learnt behaviour, and if that's what you learn, then that's the way that you behave. I think what we find more with girls is that they can be really compliant. The really good child always does what they're told, and that can be just as dangerous as a child that's out of control with their temper.
How do you teach children to keep safe if they're still living in a violent house?
Our program is really focused on safety planning and keeping the child safe. The mother is always involved in the safety plan that we make, and we make a range of safety plans for different situations. So if there's fighting at home or bullying at school or fighting in the street, what that child will do in that situation. We also go through ringing 111 and what to say to the police so that they feel confident in doing that if the need ever arises for them to. But honestly, the children that we work with usually aren't still living with the abusive parent because their mothers have usually come into refuge and they've separated from their partner. That doesn't mean that the child doesn't see that parent again or could be in a situation where violence can erupt, which is why safety planning is so important.
We'll bring you more on that program next week. For the second time, Tauranga Riding for the Disabled will be opening the stable doors to the public for training of volunteers.
Well, we thought it would be really great to allow members of the public that haven't had the opportunity to come up here before and see what we do to be able to get involved with us. So, opening it to the public gives everyone the opportunity to come and get involved.
What kind of people would be good for a volunteer?
Pretty much anyone and everyone. Really, all we require is someone that's enthusiastic, wants to be part of a team and gets along with other people and is keen to take part. And that's it really, you know, young or old, whoever you are, you don't have to have horse experience, but come and get involved.
What does a volunteer actually do?
The main thing they do is they help with our rides with disabilities, so they might be involved in preparing the horses in the morning, getting them saddled up and groomed, ready for our riders, and then they have a cup of tea and a bit of a brief, and when the riders come in, they will be involved in leading them or sidewalking beside them to help keep them stable and happy on the horse, and that's it really. We've got lots of different riders coming in and out throughout the morning, so they get to know them and form a bond, and that's about it really.
Do we need to have experience with horses?
No, you don't. Lots of people do, which is fantastic. It makes it very easy if they do, because they can come and they'll already know how to catch the horse from the paddock and put a saddle on. But we do provide all the training that's necessary. If people are afraid of horses, we don't force them to work with the horses. There's lots of other tasks involved, and so yeah, we're not going to say get in there with that big scary horse if that's not what they want to do. There's lots of opportunities here.
Does it take a special type of horse to do this kind of work?
They certainly do, yeah. They are a special kind of horse, all sorts of different breeds and sizes, but they are required to be very sensible, so they need a certain character type anyway, but then we provide them with lots of desensitising training so that they're not afraid of loud noises or children screaming or jerking around or running up and down, and different volunteers grooming them every day, so they have to get used to lots of different people coming in and out, and yeah, a special horse really.
How do you go about desensitising a horse?
Well, there's lots of training tasks we do for them. We have all sorts of activities and games, and even a giant hoofball that can roll around on the ground and potentially look like a predator. So they come in the arena with the coaches and our team and some of our more horsey volunteers, and bit by bit we teach them to get accustomed to those things by exposing them to them, maybe walking them around them, and then one of our experienced riders will get on them and teach them to not be afraid of those things.
If you'd like to attend the Volunteer Day or find out more about this amazing place, you can visit equestriantherapycentre.co.nz or phone 07544 1899. That is the news for today and this week. Email us at news@tvcentral.co.nz and let us know your thoughts on today's programme. I will be back again next week with more guests from in and around the regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening and a fantastic weekend.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.